Inside Silicon, the technology behind everything. Powered by Semionics.
All right, let's get right into it. We're going to unravel a modern industrial mystery. It's the story of how the entire global auto industry, this absolute giant of manufacturing, was basically brought to its knees by something you could literally lose in your couch cushions. I mean, think about what a modern car is. It is a huge investment. You're spending what? 30,000, 50,000, maybe even $100,000 or more. It's this incredible marvel of engineering, with thousands and thousands of parts all having to work together perfectly. And yet, just a little while ago, that entire intricate dance just came to a grinding halt. We're talking about massive factories built for peak efficiency suddenly going silent. Cars nearly finished, just sitting in parking lots for months, unable to be shipped. The whole system just stopped. Now, your first thought is probably that the culprit had to be some super complex, super expensive part, right? Maybe a revolutionary new battery pack or a sophisticated sensor. Nope. The entire crisis, the whole thing, hinged on a tiny component that costs $1. Seriously, that's it. Sometimes even less than that. A single $1 chip was the bottleneck that cost the auto industry billions and billions in lost revenue. The mismatch in scale is it's almost hard to believe. So that brings us to our big question for today. How is that even possible? How can a part that's basically a rounding error on the final price tag have that much power over a global industry? Well, the answer reveals some pretty deep and frankly some uncomfortable truths about the supply chains we all rely on every single day. Okay, so to find our first clue, we need to look closer at the chip itself, the automotive microcontroller, or MCU. Think of it as the invisible brain doing all the unglamorous but absolutely vital work inside your car. Yeah, these aren't the fancy processors running your big touchscreen display. As you can see here, these little MCUs handle the life or death basics. They're what fire the airbags in a crash. They manage your anti-lock brakes. They control critical engine timing and keep your battery from exploding. You can't just leave one out. A car without a working airbag controller is basically a very expensive metal box. You can't sell it, period. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, especially for those of you into chip design. Look at this comparison. In the world of VLSI, the process node, like 90 nanometer versus 3 nanometer, tells you how advanced the manufacturing is. And 90 nanometer, well, that's ancient technology compared to a cutting-edge AI chip. But here's the twist. For a car, that's a feature, not a bug. The number one priority isn't insane performance, it's rock-solid, bulletproof reliability over a 15-year life of extreme heat, cold, and vibrations. These chips are built to last on old, proven, mature technology. And that right there, that's where the problem really begins. So, you have to understand, this crisis wasn't just about a single chip. It was about the hyper-efficient but incredibly brittle system the auto industry had built around it. A system that made one absolutely fatal assumption. And that assumption is baked right into just-in-time manufacturing. On paper, it's brilliant. Parts show up exactly when they're needed on the line. It slashes your inventory costs, boosts efficiency, it's great. But look at the key words here: minimal inventory and no buffer. JIT is like walking a tightrope with no safety net. It works perfectly until the tiniest gust of wind comes along. It has zero tolerance for disruption. And boy, did that fragility get exposed fast. In early 2020, the pandemic hits, car sales fall off a cliff, and automakers cancel their chip orders. Now, the chip makers, the foundries, they aren't going to let their multi-billion-dollar factories just sit idle. So they immediately shifted that production capacity over to consumer electronics, because everyone was buying laptops and game consoles. But then auto demand roared back way faster than anyone thought possible. And when the car companies came knocking again, the foundries just had to say, sorry, we're all booked up. That window of opportunity had slammed shut. This gets us to what I call the capacity trap. You see, semiconductor fabs are crazy expensive. To make money, they have to run flat out, 24/7, near 100% utilization. This is especially true for the older, mature node fabs that make these car chips. There just wasn't any spare capacity sitting around waiting for a phone call. And if you think about it from a business angle, why would there be? This quote really says it all. The profit you make on a cutting-edge 3-nanometer AI chip is astronomically higher than on a $1 microcontroller. So for years, the industry has been underinvesting in new capacity for these older but still essential components. The money and all the attention was somewhere else. So the next question you're probably asking is, okay, if your main supplier is full, just find a new one, right? Well, that question leads us to the final and maybe the most rigid piece of this entire puzzle, what we call technical lock-in. You absolutely cannot swap an automotive MCU like you'd swap a light bulb. It's not going to happen. Before any new chip goes into a car, it has to survive this absolutely brutal gauntlet of testing. AEC-Q 100 is the industry's stress test standard. Then it has to be validated for functional safety, basically proving it won't fail in a way that could hurt someone. And the total time for this whole process? We're talking 6 to 12 months. You don't have 12 months when your factory has been shut down for a week. So this is the lock-in. Every one of these tiny, cheap chips is deeply integrated into the car's incredibly complex electronics. It's all validated as one single cohesive system. Tearing one chip out and trying to plug in a similar one from another company means you have to revalidate huge parts of that system. It's technically a nightmare, it's slow, and it's expensive. When the existing supply chain broke, there was simply no quick fix. So let's fast forward a bit. Let's look at the aftermath and see how this whole crisis forced a fundamental change in how everyone thinks about the role of silicon in the global economy. The impact wasn't just on automakers' balance sheets. It created this massive ripple effect. Billions in lost revenue, for sure. But it also meant worker furloughs, and something a lot of us probably felt personally, a massive shortage of new cars, which sent used car prices through the roof. But the biggest lesson, the one that changed everything, is right here. For decades, industries like automotive treated chips like they were just commodities, like nuts and bolts that you just order from whoever's cheapest. The shortage proved that thinking was dangerously fundamentally wrong. Silicon isn't a commodity. It is a foundational, strategic asset. And you can see the results of that new thinking playing out right now. Automakers are cutting out the middleman, signing long-term deals directly with the chip foundries. And governments, finally recognizing this as a national security issue, are pouring tens of billions of dollars into things like the CHIPS Act to bring more manufacturing capacity back home. So there you have it, mystery solved. It wasn't just one thing. It was a perfect storm, a collision of all four of these factors at the exact same time. A fragile, just-in-time supply chain with no slack, years of underinvestment in the quote-unquote boring chips, a rigid qualification process that made it impossible to adapt, all lit on fire by a wild, unpredictable swing in demand. And I think this is the ultimate lesson here. In a deeply connected global system like this one, it's not always the biggest or the most expensive part that has all the power. Sometimes it's the smallest part, the one with no substitutes, no buffer, and no easy alternatives, that has all the leverage. Which leads me to a final thought I want to leave you with. Right now, the incredible demand for AI is consuming more and more of the world's most advanced chip manufacturing capacity. So my question to you is, what have we overlooked this time? Where, in some other critical industry, is the next $1 bottleneck hiding in plain sight?
Inside silicon, the technology behind everything. Powered by Semionics.